And welcome back, everybody, to an episode of New York State Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Rick and Keeler are here with you as we get set for our 10th anniversary special here on IE Sports Radio. Happy 10th birthday to the network. We have a great topic for today. The top 10, well, not the top 10, but the top players to wear number 10 on all the New York sports teams. We'll talk about that. We're getting ready for Knicks Game 6 tomorrow. Rangers Game 6 tonight. Can they avoid going back home for Game 7? It should be an all-time collapse. Liberty gets set for some battles with Caitlin Clark this weekend in the Indiana Fever. Yankees are red hot. Mets, they're not. And we got a big Hudson Derby this weekend. Red Bulls and NYCFC both playing some good soccer at the right time. It's all coming up next here on New York State Sports. See you in a minute. Follow me on Twitter at Ganator555. Get at RICK, Nader like a Terminator 35. Follow the show on Twitter at NY State Sports IE. You can also follow the network at IE Sports Radio. If you have a thought throughout the show, you could email me, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. Always happy to hear from you. You could also join the chat here on Spreaker. Always happy to get some questions and comments over the next hour plus. We have so much to dive into. And look, this is a busy weekend in New York sports, and it's a fun time for both here in the city and for the network. And I guess we'll start there. I want to get that going, and I've been here on the network since early January. Done over 30 episodes, and one of the things I've enjoyed about this group here at the network is the close bond that we all have, and I've enjoyed doing the collaborative shows with some of the other shows, and hopefully if the Knicks do advance, we're going to have D. Dortch from the Beantown Blitz on some, but the Knicks do play the Celtics in the conference final, which would be exciting. There's still a chance the Rangers could play the Bruins. So if that's the case, we'll talk about that a little bit more. I made some good friends. Larry's a great guy to work for. And you never know who you're going to run across. And my guy Ralph Calise, the host of the Yinzer Report, as I met him, I found out, hey, this guy lives right near me. And we've kind of formed a close bond with our shows. And as the Giants and Jets play the Steelers this year, we'll try to do some post games and things like that. So it's just been, I was always looking to get back into the podcasting game as somebody who used to host podcasts and do some writing on the side. Catch my work over at Mets Mirais, Mets Minors, doing some baseball things. But I always love talking about my opinions and spreading any information that I can. So getting a chance to get back in the podcast game and for Larry to give me that opportunity, I've enjoyed it 1,000% since coming here. It's kind of been reinvigorating for me. So for the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has brought you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to keep up with the latest in sports and with our shows. Also, check out our daily updated website, iesportsradio.com, for the latest news, IE Sports Radio blog, our Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month, pages dedicated to each podcast, our IE Sports Radio community forum, and stop by the shop and check out the merch. Thank you for making IE Sports Radio a direct feed for all that is sports. So let's get into it, and I thought about the best number 10s in New York history. Now, you could easily do a list of rankings and things like that, but I wanted to do just a list by team. Obviously, it's some ones are more obvious than others, but I always leave the debate open to you guys. If you have a different opinion, feel free to let me know. Some I couldn't decide, so I have two choices for some of these. We'll start with football. The Jets, I went with a tie, Chad Pennington and Santonio Holmes. Chad Pennington, of course, being the Jet quarterback from the mid to late 2000s, or early 2000s, before he went to Miami, helped the Dolphins win a division with Pennington. Of course, helped the Jets to the playoffs a couple times. Santonio Holmes, a wide receiver on the last team that went to the AFC Championship game. So that's why I kind of had it as a tie with those two. They both were big in the Jets' rare playoff runs over the last 2 decades or so. Giants, it's obvious it's Eli Manning, 2-time Super Bowl champion. Yankees, I went Phil Rizzuto. Holy cow, shortstop, all that great stuff. Mets, Le Grand Orange, Rusty Staub. Played for the Mets for a decade, so it's hard not to put him as number 10. There wasn't a lot of other choices you could give for that number. Knicks, I went with Walt Frazier. Honored it. Of course, his number's retired. Hall of Famer, broadcaster. That was an easy one. Some of these now are going to get a little more difficult. Rangers, and we'll get into his importance later tonight. I think it will end up being Artemi Panarin. You could have gone with Issa Tikkanen from the late 90s or mid-90s with the Stanley Cup run. Marian Gaborik was another name I thought of. But I think it will end up being Panarin. Islanders, I went with Lauren Henning. 2 Stanley Cups with the Islanders. So that Devils, I went with Aaron Broughton. One of the better players of the 80s for them. And for the Nets, I went different. I went Sam Cassell. Sam Cassell played for the Nets from 97 through 99. That was a tough one. Obviously, Ben Simmons wears that number now, and he's a guy that you barely even see on the court to begin with. So, kind of decided to go a different direction there and go with the vet and Sam Cassell. But those are my picks. Let me know your picks. Again, at Rickinator555 on Twitter. Happy to hear from you. So let's start with the Rangers. Game 6 tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern on TNT. Rangers and Hurricanes haven't played since Monday, so having the 2 days off. It depends on what you view it as. Do you view it as extra rest avoids overthinking what's going on with the Rangers, or do you view it as the longer you sit on something, the more it eats at your mind? I tend to look at it as the former. The fact they kind of have to stall Carolina's momentum by waiting 2 days to play, I think helps. We'll get into for the Knicks in a little bit why that's the case. But this is a must-win for the Rangers. And I know that if they lose tonight, there is a Game 7 on Saturday. I understand that, and it's at home. But if the Rangers lose this game, you're talking about already feeling like you lost a series even though you didn't lose the series. The fact that you were up 3-0, and I said this on the post-game Monday, I don't want to hear about how, these two teams are even, and if you told me it was 3-2 Rangers going into Game 6, it would be okay. No. You're up 3-0. You got to close. Doesn't matter how you got to 3-0, you're up 3-0. And they played a iffy game in Game 4, and they played an awful third period in Game 5, and honestly played an awful game. The only goal they got was shorthanded. And it's time for the Stars to step up for this team. I know Chris Kreider didn't practice yesterday due to maintenance. He's in the lineup tonight, which is great news. But you have Kreider now banged up. Remember, Adam Fox missed the practice due to maintenance earlier in the playoffs, so you can tell there's some injuries going on for sure. But at the same time, as I said earlier with the best number 10, you want to be the best number 10, Artemi Panarin, you got to have a game. I know he's got 4 game-winning goals in the playoffs, but the Rangers need their top 2 lines to step up because you know Carolina's top 2 lines are going to do with Aho and Gensel. They're going to find ways to impact the game because Carolina got it done with guys like Jordan Staal, Jordan Martinook, getting Kuznetsov. Their bottom lines end up getting the job done in Game 5. So I expect tonight to be a clash of top 2 lines. If you get a power play, you got to score. Rangers are 0 for their last 8 on the power play. Carolina's 1 for 20 in the series. So whoever actually scores on their power play does a big deal tonight. Igor Shesterkin, I think, needs to have a strong game in net. And this is a team that's got to focus. Now, there was a great article from Johnny Lazarus from Bleacher Report Open Ice. He talked with both Peter Laviolette and Jonathan Quick. Pierre Laviolette was the coach in 2010 when the Flyers rallied from 3-0 to beat the Boston Bruins, one of only 4 teams in NHL history to do it. And Jonathan Quick was the goalie on the Kings who did it as well on their run to the Stanley Cup. But Quick was also the goalie for Vegas when they were up 3-0 in the conference in one of the series a couple years ago. They lost the next two and still won the series. So great article if you want to check that out. And the Rangers at least have those guys in their locker room to kind of feed off the experience and to kind of avoid something that was unprecedented for a lot of teams. Now what helps is the fact that if you look around the NHL playoffs, there's right now 3 Game 6s, at least guaranteed to be 4, because Vancouver-Edmonton is 2-2. You had Florida lose Game 5 at home up 3-1 to Boston. You had Dallas lose Game 5 to Colorado after being up 3-1. So it's something that isn't uncommon in this year's playoffs, which is what makes it wide open. And I think that's the tough part of the NHL is bounces the puck here or there. Really can determine things like this. So at least the Rangers aren't the only one in a Game 6, and at least they don't miss out on extra rest time because they're playing tonight. The question is going to be, what lineup changes does Laviolette make? Doesn't sound like Filipino's going to play again. To me, the biggest change is either you shake up the top 2, which you're not going to do, or you shake up the pairings on defense. And it sounds like it could be a Jacob Trouba, Keandre Miller duo, and then you put Eric Gustafsson with Brandon Schneider on the other D pairing. I think that makes sense because you're putting your top vet guys in there. I know Trouba's had a rough series, but he's your captain. He's got to deliver. And key for the Rangers, stay out of the box. You're not going to see Rempey tonight. You're probably going to see someone like Brodzinski on the 4th line. It's put up or shut up time for them. Because I mentioned it on the show Monday, this is a group that blew a 2-0 series lead to Tampa in the final in 2022, that blew a 2-0 lead to New Jersey last year. If they have a 3-0 blown lead on their resume, you really have to think of shaking up the core of this group. That's why tonight is so big. Because if they go back home and play Game 7 at the Garden, that crowd is going to be sitting on their hands waiting for the bad thing to happen. And all the pressure would be on the Rangers. Some of it is tonight. I think they have the bulk of it. All of it would be in Game 7. Carolina would be playing with house money. Because nobody expected them to be here. Yes, the games were close outside of the third period of Game 5, but nobody really expected it. My man Ralph is here. What's going on, Ralph? Jen, thank you for hopping in. Let's talk Knicks a little bit. Game 6 tomorrow against Indiana. They get the 2 days off after a blowout win in Game 5. Very convincing fashion. Both teams have had their blowout win in the series. And I think at least now for the Knicks, they have a Game 7 to fall back on, which I think people would expect a maximum effort from Indiana tomorrow at home. Josh Hart was talking to the media earlier today, talking about how the Knicks need to bring the energy, and he talked about how they need to have a fast start. And it kind of relates back to what Game 6 was against Philly, when the Knicks got off to the great start. They still trail at the half, but I think they know they need to go in and continue the momentum from Game 5, being tougher than Indiana, taking it to them early, making them play outside their identity, forcing them to turnovers, putting Halliburton in uncomfortable matchups. That's the way they're going to win this game. They have to hold Indiana under 110 points. And they held them to 91 points the other day, which is really impressive. But if the Pacers are going to bring that up-tempo, fast, score early kind of mentality, the Knicks are in for a long night. They have to ugly this game up. They have to get on the offensive boards like they did in Game 5, getting 20 offensive boards when Indiana had 29 as a team. Total. They dominated that game from the jump, and they dominated effort. And when a team is desperate like Indiana, and this is a lesson for the Rangers, you have to match that intensity. You have to. There's no, we'll wait and there's a Game 7. No. I think the Knicks would have the edge in the Game 7 just because I think that home crowd would be into it. But tomorrow night is the biggest Knick game in 25 years. Remember, they got to this point last year. They lost in Game 6 to Miami. But they were down 3-2 then. Now you got 2 chances to make it back to the Eastern Conference Final, which I think would be a success, and everything else would be house money from there for the Knicks. And you think about what this team has done with mostly reserves for the guys that started the year on the bench are stepping up and making big plays. Deuce McBride was great at the starting lineup in Game 5. Does he keep that up in Game 6? You have Hardenstein getting on the boards. Josh Hart's been big. DiVincenzo hit no threes. You would think he's going to bounce back. And if he has 6 threes like he did in Game 3, then the Knicks have a really good chance. And they have to think back to, hey, in Game 3 in Indiana, when that crowd was loud and into the game, the Knicks still had a 9-point lead in the fourth quarter. These teams are evenly matched, but I think the Knicks have the edge both on the boards and with their defense. And that's the way they're going to win. They've put up a lot of points in this series because Indiana's defense is awful. But they can't rely on that. They've got to win this game through effort and intensity. Taryn, how are you? Thank you for the compliments, man. So here's the situation with the schedule. Minnesota plays Denver tonight. Now, why is that a big game? If the Timberwolves win and the Knicks win Friday, Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final would be Tuesday. If the T-Wolves lose, no matter what, the Knicks are playing a game Sunday. It's either Game 7 against the Pacers or it's Game 1 against the Celtics. So if you're a Knicks fan, you're rooting for Minnesota tonight because you want to get that extra rest before you have to play the juggernaut that is the Celtics, that have only lost 2 games in this postseason and have really either been blown out or blown the other team out in all their playoff games. So they have that energy, even without Kristaps Porzingis, to match that. So, again, for the Knicks, you're rooting for Minnesota today. I don't think the Timberwolves will win, but you never know what can happen, and you never know if Nikola Jokic has a rough night or Jamal Murray has a rough night or something goes wrong. So if I had to pick which series goes to Game 7, because I do expect to be doing one Game 7 postgame this weekend, I'm going to say the Rangers do. I think I have more confidence in the Knicks based off, hey, they went into Philly in Game 6 and won. This team kind of flipped the script from that blowout loss in Game 4. They, I think, have found some blueprints to Indiana's game. Maybe they catch the Pacers feeling tight in a elimination game, something Indiana has not faced yet in this postseason. And it's a young team. I think they know they don't want to go back to New York for Game 7, although that's there. They have a closer in Jalen Brunson, who's got his 40-plus point game again on Tuesday. He seems to be somewhat healthier, which is great news because if Brunson's close to his normal self, Indiana can't guard him. They can't prevent him from getting in the paint and getting his shot. They can limit it with McConnell, but with Nesmith and Nembhard, Brunson's made quick work of them. And I don't trust the vibe around the Rangers right now. I know Peter Laviolette has talked about fixing these things. The Rangers usually do rebound, but keep in mind it's also a very streaky team as well. It's a team that can win 7 in a row and they could lose 5 in a row. At least during the regular season, we saw that. And I think Carolina, with that in Raleigh, they play fast, they play aggressive, and the Rangers don't get many shots. Carolina's going to pepper Igor with shots. The Rangers make Frederik Anderson sit back in a lawn chair because he doesn't get many looks. Now, they get great looks when they get them, but their chances just aren't there. So if you're asking me how my post games look this weekend, I think it's going to be we're doing a Game 7 Ranger one Saturday night. And instead we're doing a Knick one looking ahead to the Celtics series. That's how I think this is going to go. So the rundown, at least for post-game shows this week, we're going to do one that'll be up Friday morning for tonight's Ranger game, one Saturday morning for tonight's for Friday night's Knick game. That's what's going on right now. Obviously, if there's Game 7, so there's conference finals, I will update you guys both on my Twitter and on the NY State of Sports Twitter account. So let's take our first break. We will come back. We will look at the Giants and Jets schedule. And there was some comments made by someone at the NFL front office that the Jets owe the NFL something. I'll tell you why that's crazy coming up next on New York State of Sports. We'll see you in a minute.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
Be sure to follow the great sponsors here at the network that have helped IE Sports Radio reach this 10-year milestone. We can't be here without them. Planet Jerky and Seal the Deal Wax Seals. Ricky Keeler back with you here on New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. And Ralph, I agree with you. Rangers got to score the first goal. But even if they do, I think the bigger key is just getting through the first period in the game. Carolina's going to be raucous into the contest. They've got to find a way to just limit the damage early. If they can do that, I think they'll be fine. So let's talk the Giants and Jets schedules. I'm going to start with the Jets because I think they're the bigger draw, and the NFL showed that. The Jets have 6 primetime games in the first 11 weeks of the season. That is the most for any team since 1970. They have the opener at San Francisco. It's a Monday night game on ESPN. Their home opener is against the Patriots, September 19th. That's a Thursday game on Prime. They play the Bills on Monday Night Football, October 14th. Then they're at the Steelers for Sunday Night Football on the 20th. Home to the Texans on Halloween. That's on Prime. And then home to the Colts. That's an 8:20 game on NBC on the 17th. Look, the Jets are very intriguing, obviously, because of who the quarterback is. Like, they're getting these primetime games because of Aaron Rodgers. Now, Mike North, who is the NFL's vice president of broadcast partners, was on a conference call today. And he said, we had this conversation a year ago. We were all in on the Jets, and for that guy to last 4 plays being Rodgers was disheartening for many of us. I feel like we could run it back, and certainly our broadcast partners, when they came to us early in the process talking about storylines they want to focus on early in the return or in the season, obviously Aaron Rodgers' return was a key one for everyone. Yes, it's an awful lot of primetime games early in the season, but obviously I feel like the Jets kind of owe us one. So why is somebody in the NFL even saying that a team owes them something? Isn't it the league's fault for relying that a 39-year-old quarterback was going to stay healthy the entire year? Even if it wasn't an ACL, you would think Aaron Rodgers is going to have some kind of injury that could limit how many games he plays in. It's not the Jets' it is the Jets' fault they didn't have a great backup quarterback in place. But a lot of primetime games ruin things for fans. I mean, you have to feel for a Jet fan that buys season tickets and they get a primetime bulk of their home games in primetime. You're talking about leaving the stadium at 11:30, 12 o'clock to go to work the next day. You have a home opener, which everybody looks forward to, on a Thursday night. You're telling me that Jets-Patriots has to be a Thursday night prime game and not a random 1 o'clock game on a Sunday, considering the lack of a draw the Patriots are right now? I know there's not a lot of other options out there, and you can only put the Chiefs on so many times or the Niners on so many times. You're only allowed a maximum of 6. The Jets got the maximum. And they have a 7th big game because they're going to London to play the Vikings. So the league, once again, is banking on Aaron Rodgers. We'll see if it works, but for an NFL executive to say that a team owes them something, I'm shocked by that. So I'll run through the rest of the Jets' schedule. They are going to have, as we said, the Niners, which I think is a really good game. The Robert Saleh, former defensive coordinator of the 49ers. Aaron Rodgers going back to California. That's going to be pretty cool. Then they're at the Titans, week 2. Home to Denver, week 4. We talked about the Patriot game. In London against Minnesota, week 5. Then the Bills at home, week 6, Monday Night Football. At Pittsburgh, Sunday night game, week 7. At New England, week 8. Home to the Texans on Halloween. Then at the Cardinals, November 10th. Home to Indy on the 17th. That's a Sunday night game. They get the bye. Then home to Seattle. At Miami. At Jacksonville. Home to the Rams. At Buffalo. Home to Miami. So at least they end the year with the Dolphins at home. It's a colder game, which I think benefits them. They get the Rams in December at home, which could benefit them. Seattle in December at home, which will benefit them if there's bad weather in the area. I like the Jets' schedule. I think it benefits them. If they can split on the road, they have a good stretch of games like against rookie quarterbacks. Maybe Drake May, if it's not Jacoby Brissett in week 3, Bo Nix maybe in week 4, and J.J. McCarthy maybe in week 5. So the fact that you get 3 rookie quarterbacks potentially in a row is a huge benefit. And they get the Texans at home. They have the Bills at home. Most of their tough games, their toughest road game is week 1. If that's the case, then the Jets should be sitting pretty if everybody stays healthy. Giants, on their hand, their schedule, little interesting. They start with Minnesota week 1 at home. So we're ultimately right now going to get to see if going against J.J. McCarthy and not picking him was the right call. But some good intrigue in that matchup. Then they're at the Commanders for Jaden Daniels' home debut. At Cleveland on the 22nd. Then Thursday Night Football against Dallas. I get the league loves Giants-Cowboys in primetime, but Dallas is continually beat up on the Giants so much. I don't get why they keep putting the game on there, but we'll get to that later. At Seattle, October 6th. Then home to the Bengals. That's a Sunday night game against Joe Burrow. Home to the Eagles on the 20th. That's Saquon Barkley's return. At Pittsburgh, it's a Monday night game on the 28th. Home to the Commanders on the 3rd. At Carolina in Munich. Panthers don't have a primetime game. Their only standalone game is the Germany game. That is on the 10th, and the Giants get their bye. They're home to Tampa on the 24th. At Dallas on Thanksgiving. I don't get the... Again, I get the Cowboys are on Thanksgiving. The Giants again? Giants haven't really played well against Dallas, and we're going to put the national media to watch that game. Saying what the blowouts the Cowboys gave the Giants the last couple times. I don't get it, but that's your Thanksgiving game at 4:30. Saints at home on the 8th. Ravens at home on the 15th. At Atlanta the 22nd. Home to Indy on the 29th. And then at Philly to end the year. You look at that Giants schedule to end the year with Dallas, Baltimore, Atlanta, Indy, if Richardson's healthy, is going to be interesting, and then Philly. That's a rough way to end the year. So if you're the Giants, you're looking at needing to start 3-2 in those first 5 games. Like, you got to beat the Commanders, you've got to beat Seattle, and you've got to beat Minnesota. I mean, that Minnesota game in week 1, you're not going to call it a must-win, but that's a team you should beat, especially if they're starting a rookie quarterback. I don't care who's starting, if it's Daniel Jones or Drew Lock. Doesn't matter. You have to win that game. You cannot start 0-1. You start 0-1, then you lose to the Commanders. Your season's already spiraling out of control. Which is bad news for Joe Schoen and Brian Dable. Now, we will get to see an inside scoop of Joe Schoen in the front office because the Giants are going to be on the off-season Hard Knocks in July on HBO. I actually like that for them. It's not the training camp one, and you get at least a look into what the off-season looks like, the draft process, the combine, free agency. Like, that's the kind of things NFL fans want to see. They want to see what goes in behind certain decisions and what the process looks like. I think we've seen the training camp one. I think people are a little lenient, a little hesitant in the NFL to kind of do the training camp one because you don't want stuff out there. But I think having the front office one and getting a closer look on what Joe Schoen does is going to be pretty interesting. We'll talk a little Liberty real quick. A little WNBA action. Liberty had their opener on Tuesday. They had a rough one. They were down after 3 to the Mystics in a game they were favored by 13 points. But they found a way to rally 85-80 the win. Jonquel Jones, she had 25 points and 8 rebounds. Benijah Laney Hamilton, 20 points, a 9-13 shooting. Great game from their front court. On a night where Brianna Stewart was only 3 for 9 from the floor. Ionescu had 15, 8, and 7. They shot 47%. Only made 8 threes, but they were able to clamp down in the fourth quarter and outscored the Mystics 26-13. So good start for the Liberty, and now they get their test. 2 games coming up this week against the Indiana Fever, one being tonight at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. That's at 7 o'clock on My 9 locally and in Prime Video. Liberty are favored by 8.5. They will then play the Liberty on Saturday. That's a 1 o'clock game on ABC. Caitlin Clark had 10 turnovers her first game, but she also had 20 points. So to see that point guard matchup with Clark and Ionescu is going to be a whole lot of fun. Then they play Monday at home against Seattle at Barclays Center. And they have a game Thursday, which we'll look ahead. Oh, actually, there is no show Thursday. I'll get into that in a minute. The Liberty are home to the Chicago Sky on Thursday. There is no show Thursday because my brother is actually graduating college. So I will be at his college graduation. So congratulations to Matt on that accomplishment. We'll take another break. We'll come back. We'll talk Yankees and Mets. Yankees are flying high. The Mets didn't exactly get the trip against Atlanta and Philadelphia they were hoping for. And Steve Cohen sent a tweet that he probably should not have sent publicly. You're listening to New York's Day of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all their sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, Cleveland and Columbus sports fans. This is Jen B, host of the Show of the Land on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in live to the Show of the Land on Tuesdays, where we will cover the Cleveland Browns, Cavs, Guardians, and Monsters. We will also talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, Crew, Fury, and of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll also cover other colleges in the area like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, Youngstown State, among others. So like I said, if you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in Tuesdays to the Show of the Land with Jen B on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph DeLeese, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Yins Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports. And I will update you on all that's black and gold and have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Calise, the Yinzer Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Danya Vodovoz.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
Direct feed for all the sports. Ricky Keeler here with you as we get set to transition to baseball. Some interesting news today. It's not really news, but it's a good insight from Jack Curry at Yes as we talk about the Yankees first. Curry said they interviewed Hal Steinbrenner on his Yankee News and Views podcast, and Steinbrenner, who's the owner of the Yankees, said he'd like to see Soto finish his career with the Yankees. While Boris's clients typically go to free agency, Steinbrenner also said it's likely there will be talks this season. See, that's a good show of initiative and urgency by the Yankees. Obviously, I think they know most likely they're not going to re-sign Soto this season. But to at least say, hey, let's try to get this done now so he doesn't hit free agency, I think that works. Obviously, they're going to pay Juan Soto a hefty sum regardless of whether they get it done now or in the winter. But you're clearly seeing this guy is acclimating himself well to New York. He's been a presence in the lineup every day. He's been a consistent producer every day. Clearly, the bright lights haven't phased him. If anything, he embraces it. So you tip your cap to what he's doing, and so also tip your cap to the front office for trying to get it done. So right now the Yankees currently with a 4-0 lead as they are finishing up their series against Minnesota. That game in the bottom of the 6th inning. Clark Schmidt has been absolutely dealing in this game. 5 innings of work. He's only allowed 2 hits, and he has struck out 5. Schmidt's been really good. His ERA right now, as of we record this, is about 2.6. If he has been this consistent game in and game out, he's going to really help this team. And the Yankees are doing what they need to do. I mean, they've historically owned the Minnesota Twins, so it's not shocking that they're doing what they're doing in this series. But a win today would get them 30 wins in the first 45 games. And you tell me this Yankee team would be 30-15 without Garrett Cole, and with Aaron Judge struggling for the bulk of April, and Judge is heating up. He's been crushing home runs, 467-foot home run last night. He had a double earlier today. His OPS in May is around like 920. He is finding his way to put up good numbers. The Yankees went into Tampa. They took 2 out of 3. Had a rough game on Saturday with Nestor Cortez on the mound, so he's still a little bit streaky, but their offense came to play on Sunday. a 10-6 victory. Luis Gil now 4-1 on the year. We talked about him last week. Another 6 scoreless innings. He's been giving them consistent starts night in and night out. But you love the way they started today's game. Anthony Volpe leads off with a home run. They put up a 3 spot in the first inning. And that's going to help them. I mean, you look at Carlos Rodon on Tuesday. Yankees win 5-1. Rodon goes 6 innings, allows 1 run, 6 hits, strikes out 6, and doesn't walk anybody. This is after he gives up a home run in the first inning. So he's been able to bounce back. The bullpen with Hamilton, Holmes is doing their thing. And then last night, 4-0 win. Yankees score a run in each of the first 3 innings against a good pitcher in Pablo Lopez. Marcus Stroman goes 6 scoreless, 2 hits. He does walk 3. I still think the walks are a little concerning from Stroman. Normally he's a guy that relies more on command. He hasn't been able to do that, at least of late. But still, his ERA is around 3.3, and that's what you would expect from him. Luke Weaver's been a really good multi-inning reliever for this team. So the Yankees are getting production from their rotation. Their starting rotation has been a top 5 rotation, and that's without their ace. Are they going to keep this up all year? No, but the fact of the matter is that they, again, are on the verge of maybe being 30-50, and now they can have it for those setbacks because they've gotten off to this great start. They're playing with urgency. They're playing the same guys every day. They're not doing that whole days off stuff. So, love what the Yankees are doing. This game isn't over yet, but a chance to potentially sweep the Minnesota Twins and go 5-1 on the road trip. You would sign up for that. Yankees are in Chicago. Not in Chicago. They're home to Chicago for 3. This week, White Sox, as Adam Karnick can attest to, are terrible. So the Yankees should get some wins there. Then they're home to Seattle for 4 before they go on a long road trip against the Padres, Angels, and Giants. So Yankees will look to get a good 7-game homestand in before going out west to end the month of May. But the things are cooking for the Yankees. Mets, not so much. They mentioned that they needed a big series against Atlanta. They lost 2 out of 3, and they didn't hit. Now, they did get the great comeback win Sunday night. Brandon Nimmo on Mother's Day comes off the bench, gets a walk-off 2-run homer to salvage that series. Braves didn't have Raisel Iglesias available to close. That probably helped. But it gave the Mets at least some momentum. Then they played the Phillies. So the Phillies right now are 31-13. They're the best team in baseball, but you're clearly seeing the gap there. Monday they had a chance to win. Edwin Diaz blows the save. He's been okay. He's been good, but he hasn't been the dominant Edwin Diaz. It's mainly on back-to-backs you see him struggle. But you can't blame Diaz in a game where the Mets had a chance in the 3rd inning against Christopher Sanchez to blow the game open with bases loaded, nobody out, and they can't get a hit. Really, I think a lot of the issues for the Mets right now are more so the offense. Against the Braves, they scored a total of 7 runs. They almost got no hit last Saturday if it wasn't for J.D. Martinez's home run with 2 outs in the 9th. And then Tuesday, they get shut out by Aaron Nola. Only get 4 hits, and Starling Marte had 2 of them. Last night, different story. They had to start Joey Lucchesi because Adrian Hauser was warming up the day before, so he couldn't pitch, so they had to call up Lucchesi. And the Phillies score 4 in the 5th, 2 in the 6th, 3 in the 7th to win 10-5. Bryce Harper went 3 for 5. He had a solo shot, his 10th of the year. The Mets did not get much done against Ranger Suarez, who's now 8-0 with a 1.37. He's been dominant for the Phillies. And if you look at the problems for the Mets, it's clearly on offense. Now, they did make a good move, I think, in calling up Mark Vientos. They're playing a bunch of lefties this week. And it's clearly go time for this team. They're not settling for the fact that Brett Beatty has been terrible at third base, at least from an offensive perspective. So they need some offense there. Jeff McNeil has been terrible at second base. Now, they did DFA Joey Wendell, but Joey Wendell, that signing did not work for them. And it's clear Steve Cohen has some urgency in not waiting until August to eat that money. He's going to eat it now. Because he knows this team is still in a decent position to compete for a playoff spot. Because this lineup's going to hit. You would think at some point when you have guys like Alonso and Lindor and Nimmo, you're going to find ways to hit. But that bottom of the order without Francisco Alvarez is a mess. Now, give Carlos Mendoza credit. He's switching his lineup around. Last night he hit Pete Alonso 2nd. He hit Starling Marte 6th to at least give some length to the lineup. But I love this move for Vientos. He's a power hitter. I would rather the Mets give up something on defense to get offense. Because it's clearly what their need is right now. Their pitchers are only going to go 5 innings regardless. Outside of Severino and maybe Quintana here or there. Christian Scott's been good his first 2 times out. But they've got to score. Now tonight, Jose Quintana takes the nod against former Met Taijuan Walker for the Phillies. 6:40 first pitch. Mets are in Miami for 3 this weekend. Again, games they should win. And then 3 in Cleveland, as Jen could attest to. Guardians are playing some really good baseball. So that's going to be a tough series. And I think this is Lindor's return to Cleveland. So I'm sure Jen, if she's still here, can let us know how that ovation might be for Lindor if there is one. I don't think he left on bad terms, but that should be a good scene for him to get some recognition at Progressive Field. Now, the tweet I was talking about with Steve Cohen. So, he sent a tweet out last night that he had to then clarify to Andy Martinez. So, Steve Cohen wrote to a fan that was upset that the team wasn't hitting. All in the future, not much we can do until the trade deadline. Cohen told Andy Martino of SNY that he meant to send that as a direct message. So I should always look before you hit send. So he said he DMs fans more than outward messages. So Cohen then clarified to Martino, I believe in this team. I believe in the back of the baseball card. It's way too early to speculate anything. It's May 16th. I expect to make the playoffs. I know the fan base is frustrated, but it's still early. We're still very capable of making the playoffs. I fully expect to make the playoffs. And if you look at the standings right now, again, I don't want to look at wild cards so early. The Mets are 19-23. But if you look at the National League as a whole, there are only 5 teams in the National League with a winning record. Phillies, Braves, Brewers, Cubs, Dodgers. That's it. The NL's weak. So if you're looking at a league where the 3 division winners right now that would make it, let's just play hypothetical, Philly, Brewers, and Dodgers. Atlanta would have the other one. Cubs have another one. You're looking at that final playoff spot. Here's where your 6th and final spot goes down to right now. San Diego, Diamondbacks, Nationals, Mets, Giants, Pirates, Reds, Cardinals. Everybody, you look at from San Diego to St. Louis, it's 2.5 games between 8 teams. Now that, again, it's early, but to think that the final playoff spot right now would be 2 games under 500. When you look at it from the American League, Minnesota has the 3rd playoff spot. They're 24-18. With Boston, the team behind them, but Boston and Texas are a game over 500, and Tampa's at 500. So it's clear the NL has the haves and the have-nots. So there's no reason Steve Cohen shouldn't try to not have any urgency. The Mets still have a chance. They need to get Francisco Alvarez back. They need to get Kodai Senga in that rotation in order for it to fully evaluate what this team is. But they can't dig themselves a hole. And if they lose tonight to the Phillies, you got to take care of the Marlins. You have to. So that's where your desperation series kicks in. But they're not out of it by any means. Jen says, I think fans are more upset with the front office than with Lindor. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I know they got Jimenez in that trade, but Ahmed Rosario has bounced around different teams, hasn't been what people expected. So I think the Mets would do that Lindor trade again because even though it's a long contract that he's been frustrating at times, he's still been a good leader for this team. He plays every day. It's been a good thing, but at least he'll get a good ovation in Cleveland. So we'll take one more quick break. We'll talk about a raccoon invading an NYCFC game that now has a rally raccoon for their hot start. We'll talk some soccer to wrap it up. Coming up after this.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the '08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
Wrapping up New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio with a little soccer. And both the New York Red Bulls and NYCFC are on a hot streak right now. NYCFC went on the road, played a couple of tough games after their loss to Colorado at home, wondered what they were going to do and keep that momentum up. They've won 5 of their last 6 for the first time since May of 22. They beat Toronto 3-2 on Saturday. Toronto was 6-1-5, so it's a heck of a win. Santiago Rodriguez gets a penalty kick goal in the 23rd minute. Malachi Jones scores in the 44th minute. They're up 2-0 at the half. Toronto does rally with a goal, but then Andres Pereira scores to make it 3-1. And that gives them the win there. And then last night, they were on the road in Philadelphia. Now, normally the Union don't lose home games. Like, they've lost 4 in a row at home. But they get a goal in the 2nd minute from Adrian Martinez, and a goal in the first half of stoppage time from Hannes Wolf. Their goalie, by the way, Matt Freese, has been one of the best goalies in the MLS. So they're getting some strong defense. But that wasn't the big story from last night's game. Last night, I think it's like mid-first half, a raccoon gets on the field in Philadelphia. And they take forever to get the raccoon off the field. They got to get the trash can. Then they get an Adidas sign. Then they get a trash can to put over the other trash can to get the raccoon safely out of the stadium. So maybe NYCFC's got, even though it wasn't their home game, maybe this is their rally raccoon to get them through the year. But they are playing good soccer right now, and to get 2 road wins in the same week, you have to hand it to them. As for the Red Bulls, they are playing strong soccer as well. They hosted New England. They won 4-2 on Saturday. Lewis Morgan, a goal in the 6th minute. And New England tied it up, and then Emil Forsberg, a penalty kick in the 43rd minute, put them up 2-1. Elias Manuel scores to make it 3-1. New England cuts it to 2, but then Cameron Harper scores in stoppage time. They get the win there. And then last night, on the road in DC United, they pick up a 4-1 win. Manuel gets a goal and an assist for the 2nd straight game. Harper gets a goal. Morgan scores 3-0 in 57 minutes in. And then Corey Burke gets one after DC United got on the board. Manuel, by the way, an excellent goal, like a half volley kick, which was, you got to see it to believe it, strong year. Morgan's got 9 goals now in the year. He's off to a dominant start. So it leads to Saturday. Big game at Citi Field, 7:30 Eastern. It is the Hudson Derby between the Red Bulls and NYCFC. The last couple of matchups these two teams played in 2023 was no score, or 0-0, however you want to say it. And then they played in the Leagues Cup in August. Red Bulls won 1-0. NYCFC hasn't scored in the last 3 matches against the Red Bulls. Why is this game significant? Well, obviously the rivalry makes it significant in itself. But right now, when you look at the standings, the Red Bulls are in 3rd place in the Eastern Conference, 5 points behind Miami, 4 points behind Cincinnati. NYCFC, after that bad start, is tied with Charlotte for 4th. So those 3 points could get NYCFC into the 3rd position. And if the Red Bulls win, they pull within a point of Cincy for 2nd. So remember, we had our soccer guest on at the beginning of the year and said these 2 teams that can both be playoff teams. They're looking like it right now. So we have all this talk about the success of the the basketball, the Knicks and the Rangers and the Yankees and potentially the Jets this year. Keep in mind with these soccer teams, they're playing some good ball. As for the NWSL, this week, last Sunday, the Gotham NJ and Y squad tied San Diego 1-1. Ella Stevens scored the 25th minute to help that game. Their next matchup is going to be Sunday. They're going to be taking on Chicago, who is 5-1-3 to begin the year. The New York team is 3-3-2. A couple other things as we wrap up. The Nets announcing that next year they're going to retire Vince Carter's number. It's a good move by the organization, just because you have, like, even though Vince Carter is not a part of the Brooklyn Nets, no Net fan doesn't remember the Nets from the early 2000s without Jason Kidd, Vince Carter, and Richard Jefferson. Jason Kidd's number is already in the rafters. It makes sense that Vince Carter, who's a Hall of Famer, gets his number retired. Had a good run with New Jersey. And I think just, you can't tell Nets history without Vince Carter. So it makes sense that he's in the Hall of Fame. So to wrap it up here, a couple things I want to talk. Again, Rangers, we're going to Game 6 tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern TNT. We'll have a post-game up on the game Friday morning. The Knicks, Game 6 is Friday night, 8:30 on ESPN. You get to hear Mike Breen on the call with JJ Redick and Doris Burke. Remember, the Eastern Conference Final is on ESPN. So if the Knicks do advance, you get Mike Breen the rest of the way, which I'm sure Knicks fans will enjoy that. If the Timberwolves lose and the Knicks win, Game 1 between Celtics and Knicks is Sunday. If the Knicks lose the Game 7 Sunday against the Pacers, if the Timberwolves win and the Knicks win, the Eastern Conference Final will not begin until Tuesday. Rangers, by the other hand, a lot can happen. If they win Game 6, they have to wait for Florida-Boston to finish. That Game 6 is on Friday in Beantown. So can the Bruins force a Game 7 in that series? Remember, you're going to have 4 Game 6s in the NHL, and that's what makes it exciting. So to go over my list from earlier, in case you missed it, in honor of the 10th anniversary of the best number, for the IE Sports Rated, one of the best number 10s on each team. Jets, we had Chad Pennington and Santonio Holmes. Giants, Eli Manning. Yankees, Phil Rizzuto. Mets, Rusty Staub. Knicks, Walt Frazier. Rangers, I went with Artemi Panarin, but you can make a case for Marion Gaborik. Islanders, Lauren Henning. The Devils, Aaron Broughton. And the Nets, I went with Sam Cassell. Again, it was very tough with the Nets. Obviously, it's not Ben Simmons. But a lot can happen. Obviously, maybe somebody gets number 10 down the road for Brooklyn, but that was not an easy one. Devils not as much either, but Broughton was a big part of their success in past decades. Islanders, I think, unless Ralph has a suggestion otherwise, I thought Lauren Henning was a good pick for that. Looking at recent years, there wasn't a great number 10 Islanders. Mets, it was like Rusty Staub, I thought was the obvious choice for that one. So it was a lot of cut and dry, but at least a good look back. And look, the last 10 years for New York sports, there hasn't been a lot of championships. And hopefully now to potentially have 2 teams get to a conference final in their respective sports, both 1 win away. Maybe the tides are turning in New York, and for good reason. They did get the NYCFC championship, but both these teams want to have some success. Yankees, by the way, now 5-0 in the 7th. Mets have their lineup out tonight. Tyrone Taylor is going to be playing center field, batting 5th. Taylor's been good for them off when he gets into the lineup. Lineup changes stay the same. Alonso's batting 2nd, and Starling Marte is batting 6th. So here's the schedule the rest of the way. We will have a Rangers post-game show Friday morning. We're looking ahead to Game 7, or recapping the Rangers somehow surviving this series and getting to the conference final for the second time in 3 years. Saturday morning, you'll have a Knicks Game 6 post-game show. We'll be talking about Game 7 of that series, or talking about the Knicks advancing to the conference final for the first time in almost 25 years. A heck of a run by this Knicks team that has really embraced the alums that have come out to the game. You've seen John Starks and Anthony and Trell Sprewell. great vibe that these teams have put on. It's been so much fun just to see the alums kind of be that support for the team. And the city kind of take on the Knicks as well. They brought the intensity and the fight in Game 5. Can they bring it one more time and win another series on the road? Or they have to try to clinch a series at home for the first time in a quarter century. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Brickinator555. Follow the show on Twitter at NY State Sports IE. Follow the network at IE Sports Radio. You can email me as well, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, want to give your thoughts about the Game 6s over the weekend, we'll play them in the post-game show if there within reason. I want to get you guys involved. A happy 10th year anniversary to IE Sports Radio. It's been a hell of a run for me so far. It's been, I think, episode 31. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more. I'm looking forward to seeing what the show can do in future months and maybe years and however long this goes. It's been a pleasure to work with the people here. Thank you for Ralph and Jen and Taryn for being in the shop today. Always appreciate all three of you. So enjoy the games this weekend, everybody. I will see you back here tomorrow morning for Rangers Hurricanes Game 6. Until then,